Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. It's Wednesday. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today your Wednesday lineup is slightly different due to work commitments and other commitments elsewhere. And I am joined by Lawrence Conley. Lawrence, 3 appearances in the last week. How are you? Have you got anything you want to talk about? Have you already? Yeah. Are you all talked out?
Mate, you cannot exhaust that subject.
No, you're right.
Celtic, but the job Ange is doing, but. See, he was in the press today saying we see it from Bellamy all the time in training. You know, it's good he's settling in. What a goal.
Bellamy has obviously been the subject of our post-match in a big way. We'll talk about our first ever Argentinian in the lead-up to this weekend's game. I think that Ange has a great skill at being really coy about injury concerns. He gives whatever he wants to give. And sometimes that can surprise you. I remember being at a European game last season and McGregor and Kyogo returned and nobody expected it, Lawrence. So it's very, very difficult to second guess a Celtic starting lineup with Ange in charge. We will do our best. I think what we'll do is, what team would you play? And we don't actually know all the injury updates probably until Friday. Get your comments in. What do you want to talk about in this week leading up to the Celtic Rangers game? There is plenty to discuss. We are going into the game with a full house. It's all Celtic fans. We're going into the game 9 points ahead. But as Lawrence and I spoke about last week, the gap isn't just 9 points, is it, Lawrence?
It's not, mate. And it continues to grow. You know, there's Man United interested in Frimpong. Oh, some more money for us. I'm sure it'll come in handy with the money we've got, but Ange's performances are outstanding. For all the controversy the papers try to stir up about VAR after the weekend, I've never seen a more straightforward penalty in my life. The guy's got his arm out, holding Carter Vickers. It's the only reason his arm's up there and the ball hits off it. At the same time, Kyogo's getting blocked and potentially hit at the edge of the box. You know, if that's us getting one for us, geez, you know, there was no other decision to be made, I don't think.
Well, the thing is, really, I don't think the conversation, the debate, the discussions around the actual award, the award was right. Everybody knows that. I think the issue in the discussion is around the reaction to Celtic getting that reward, how all of a sudden that becomes a ridiculous reward. All of a sudden, paid pundits on mainstream channels are able to then try and joke about the fact that, there'll be no discussion around VAR tonight because Celtic actually got a correct decision. And again, that feeds into the tagline, which we're going to be talking about. But Magnet, I hadn't seen you for a while. Welcome back. You're on the YouTube channel. You haven't commented for a while because you've been having to watch later. We play on Saturday. We win. Ignore all the white noise. We've been talking about the white noise. We've been talking about how Ange tends to deal with that. He comments on it when asked. Sometimes he comments on it with his head in his hands, Lawrence. But he knows what the pundits, the same kind of type of pundit, will be coming out with this week, to such a degree that on Monday, Colin suggested that there's a bingo card. And by Tuesday, I think every single headline had already been ran. There was even a headline around the Malvinas with regards to the goal scored by an Argentinian, which was one of the most ridiculous headlines I've ever seen in Scottish media history, which is taking the biscuit when you consider some of the headlines we've had to put up with, Lawrence. But yes, we will be talking about all of that. Who starts on Saturday? That's going to be a massive discussion point, because we hope that obviously Moy is fit, and Hatate is fit, and Taylor is fit. So I'm just going to ask you, in terms of if the full squad is available, what is going to be your starting lineup? And we'll be talking about that in detail. But I'm really, really keen to get your talking points in. Stephen Sloan, yes, it is relevant. Can we talk about the finances of our nearest challengers, Rangers, another share issue? They still haven't shown their latest accounts. It's all very strange. We won't labour the fact, Stephen, it is relevant to obviously a lot of what Celtic has to contend with. Again, I think the biggest issue here, Lawrence, is the failure to actually ask the big questions around these matters. Why is the dilution of shares seen to be something that's almost a good way of generating finance, when Big Marley, the dog, knows it's not a good way to raise finances, Lawrence. It's more to do with the way that this is just ignored. Let's just sweep it under the rug. Everything's okay. Nothing to see here. Continue as normal. Wasn't that one of the biggest issues before? And then it was too far down the line to sort it out?
Yeah, listen, it's definitely a failure of governance or of the governing bodies to act. What are they afraid of? You're getting it on multiple occasions. They just refuse to take action. Even when you look back to COVID, they were allowed to conduct an in-house investigation before the governing bodies acted. With any other club,
you want to go and make sure Marley's all right? I'll speak to the commenters. Do you want to make sure he's okay? Is he needing a wee feed, or is there somebody at the door?
I think he's fine. I think somebody walked by and it's set him off, but he'll be fine.
No, he's not. He's not fine. Were they wearing a McEwen's lager top, a blue top? Is he trained? Is he trained? Right, he's calmed down. He's calmed down. That's fine. By the way, your dog is becoming as famous as you on this show, Lawrence. One of these days we might even see him.
Yeah, indeed. I think he's been out on Twitter. Yeah, just to show that it's a real dog. But yeah, he's doing well.
It does exist.
But listen, why the governing bodies are allowing things to go on checks? Who knows? We've got a European licence deadline just passed. Would they do what they've done for a previous club and issue them a licence they weren't entitled to?
Well, that depends on the documentation that they are supplied with, doesn't it? Really? I mean, that was the big issue. And again, we're not going to go over old ground. This is new news. I mean, I can't imagine being in the game of journalism in this country, the amount of massive news stories that would fall into your lap every single day. And I don't see anyone doing any stories on them. It's kind of left down to alternative media, fan media, whatever terminology is used, alternative or independent or rebel media, to actually shine a light on it. Listen, we're going to concentrate on Celtic. That's what Ange Postecoglou does. But Stephen, yeah, you've raised it. We've had a chat about it. We all know what's going on, but I don't think the mainstream will touch it with a barge pole. What we're going to do, though, is we are going to run through as many comments as possible. If you subscribe to the channel, you will be able to comment. You might have noticed yesterday, I was on the comments. I was moderating, Lawrence, and people were wondering if it was Kevin Graham, and then someone pointed out, well, the answers aren't rhyming, so it can't be Kevin. It was indeed me. I was doing the moderation. And what I would say is, yes, we are blessed in this country with this thing called free speech, but let's understand what free speech is, because on social media, I've heard people saying, free speech allows you to basically say whatever you want. No, it doesn't. It allows you to express your opinion. It allows you to express your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, Lawrence. It doesn't allow you to impose any kind of abuse on anyone who's contributing to this show. And we got a wee bit of that yesterday, sadly. But they've been snuffed out. And if that does happen, you've actually subscribed to the channel so you can abuse people who are contributing. We're not going to kind of stand for that. And it's the same on social media. It needs to be called out, needs to be snuffed out. 99.9% of commenters are doing it because they enjoy the community that's been built on Axom, Lawrence. But anybody who wishes to abuse anyone will not last on the Axom comment section, my friend.
Oh, definitely not. Listen, you've got to ask why they're doing it. It's crazy, People are on here just to talk about Celtic. It's a bit of entertainment. Do you really want to be slagging people off? I would say no. No,
it's not the Celtic way, is it? It's not being of a Celtic mind, so a Celtic state of mind, rather. I'm going to start off then. If we go to the defence, and we know that there has been some injury concern around Greg Taylor. Ange Postecoglou has spoken about it being nothing more than a dead leg, and you hope that he is back in contention. But if for any reason he pulls up leading up to this game, Lawrence is going to go and are you going to go and check on Marley? There you go. He's going to go and check on Marley. I don't know if he's been named after Bob Marley, the well-known Celtic supporter, Robert Nesta Marley, or if it's something to do with one of the children's films that came out recently. 2 seconds, Lawrence will be back, and in the meantime, I'll talk like the old days to the comments section. And the Jungle Lion comes in. Empty vessels gather no moss. Empty vessels make the biggest racket as well, Jungle Lion. And I hope that you're all set up to watch that game over in Dublin. Magnet 67, 5-0. That is a bold bold prediction from Magnet. But we're talking about the defence to kick off today's discussion. And we'll get back to the pundit fantasies that have been filling the Glasgow Derby bingo card, copyright Colin Watt, as Ange sticks to the football and sticks to reality. The back five, Lawrence, people say that Ange doesn't have a strongest 11. The back five, when all fit, more or less picks itself. Joe Hart, Alistair Johnston, left back Greg Taylor, and the two in the centre of Starfelt and, of course, Cameron Carter-Vickers. Now, the question would be, obviously, if Greg Taylor doesn't make it, if he doesn't make the cut, what's your feeling on Bernabei if that indeed does happen? Does Ange have the confidence in Bernabei? Is the time right for him when you look at the circumstances? It's at home. It's going to be a slightly different atmosphere than he would expect if thrown into an Ibrox encounter, which Alistair Johnston obviously was, and he came through with flying colours. Would you have any concerns about Bernabei if he does have to start this game?
Listen, if Taylor's not fit, Bernabei slots in. Or else we're going to be kind of moving other players round about to accommodate it. It's one change. He's got to be, confidence has got to be sky high. What a goal. Great performance from him. So, yeah, if Taylor's not fit, Bernabei in. And I suppose it's what Ange is on record as saying. He doesn't like to mess about with his back five so much, does he? We know the front six is different, but the back five, he kind of likes to leave them alone as long as possible. So I expect Taylor to be fit, but if not, no worries dropping an Argentine in.
Now, with regards to that, my concern, you said no concern, my concern would be his defensive qualities, but then I think you look ahead of him, Bernabei plays, and in front of him would be Maeda, and he assists with the defensive aspect of that game. And again, I just think it's all about getting a bit of confidence with Alexandro Bernabei. He comes on, he scores a cracking goal. That's going to help him. You want to see his defensive qualities as well. If we look on the right-hand side, however, Alistair Johnston, for me, never had a bad game in a Celtic jersey. Lawrence seems to be growing in confidence and also growing in popularity. He's becoming a bit of a fan's favourite. He's got a style about him where it's no holds barred. He's combative. He's hard. He likes a battle. But he's a player as well. I mean, when you look at the distribution, we like to see the balls coming in fast and low to the front or the back post, and that's the type of crosses I think that he's very good at. Very much like who I think we now call his understudy, Tony Ralston.
Yeah, listen, Alistair Johnston, my man of the match at the weekend, was outstanding. There was one point where two players tried to take him out. He just skips by them, bounces off one, picks out Jota with a cross. He's 100% wholehearted player. We like someone that gives everything for the cause, but seems to have an engine that can go for 90 minutes and more, which you need in an Ange team. So he looks like an upgrade in Juranovic. So we've got to be happy, haven't we? And Tony's probably been a wee bit unlucky with injury this season. He might have thought, Juranovic moves, I'll get my chance. But, I suppose Alistair Johnston has done what Ange asks all the players to do. If you get minutes on the pitch, make them count. Make that jersey yours. And you're right, it's not a bad game. Because he's making every minute in the pitch count.
The thing I like about him as well is there has been no settling in period for Alistair Johnston. There has been, on the other side for Bernabei, there's been a settling in period for him. Some players do take a while to settle. That's just normal. I think the fact that, you could make the argument about the move from Canadian football, etc. But the fact that there's been a real culture shock, I think, for Bernabei, and it's taken him a wee while to get back into it. I remember Paul Lambert took a few games to get into it, and he knew Scottish football like the back of his hand. Lawrence, when he signed for Celtic, he spoke about that on the interview that we did just a few weeks ago. He didn't actually think he was playing well enough to start the League Cup final against Dundee United, and he told Wim Jansen that. He told Wim, keep me out of the team because other boys have been playing better. That happens. And I think that when we invest, and we invest heavily in a player, and when you look at Bernabei, I mean, it's been quite an investment bringing him to the club. It's not as though we're just going to give up on him. I mean, we're going to persevere with him, Lawrence. He's going to get as much game time as possible. But he is definitely an understudy to Greg Taylor. an interesting thing happened last night. I tend on the socials not to try and spark a debate as such, but to constantly feed any kind of image or content or footage that I may have that might appeal to Celtic fans, because I'm pretty sure everybody, or just about everybody that follows us on social media, Lawrence, is of a Celtic state of mind. And there was a picture last night, so much about this picture that I thought resonated because it's a cup final, 2005. It's a Martin O'Neill team post Larsson. We've got Craig Bellamy, who's been in the news this week, in the jersey that he used to like cutting the collar off, sitting there, for what would become his final appearance in a Celtic jersey. The game itself wasn't a great final. We beat Dundee United 1-0. The goal was scored by Alan Thompson. A penalty was missed by Chris Sutton. You'll remember he slipped as he was taking the penalty. And it was a week after we had lost the league and we had to pick ourselves up for this game. And it turned out to be Martin O'Neill's last game in charge of Celtic. And I just, there was so much happening in that picture that I just thought, you've got Jackie McNamara with the captain's armband. He's a player that O'Neill didn't instantly rate. And he persevered with O'Neill, and O'Neill persevered with him. It turns out to become his captain in the final game. Lawrence, there's a story there. There's a lesson to be learned there. But I just asked the question, how many of this team will get into Ange's team? And it sparks the usual debate. A lot of people look at it in a certain angle. They say, well, you can't just pick players and say, I like that player. He's better. That left back's better than the left back we've got now. Would he fit into Ange's team? So you get people who look at it like that. Would he be able to play at the tempo that Ange plays at, etc., etc.? And it did spark off a very, very interesting debate. My take on it was, it's not quite the Seville side. It's 2 years after Seville, right? So you've got players in that team like Stan Varga. Stan Varga's playing centre-half. I don't think Stan Varga gets into Ange's team. I don't think he gets into one of the central defensive positions. I look at
centre-half. I don't know, mate. He was decent, Stan.
I liked him. Yeah, I did. I liked Stan.
Scored in his debut, didn't he?
Yeah, I know Vega did. I know Ramon Vega did. Did Stan score in his debut as well? Did he? So. I'd need to check that, mate. I'd need to check that. Someone in the comments might be able to check it for us on the wiki. You can tell us on that. So I said, Stan Varga. No disrespect to Big Rab, because I love Big Rab. And
he's a great guy, Rab, isn't he?
He's brilliant. And I wouldn't like a backhander off him, by the way. You should see his hands are like shovels, right? In fact, he's still playing, isn't he? He was on the bench recently for Arbroath, aged 50 or something like that. I think Joe Hart gets a game ahead of Rab Douglas. Another one, maybe controversially, I don't think Neil Lennon gets into this Ange team.
No, I wouldn't have thought so, mate. I'm trying to think. He wouldn't replace Callum at the number 6. He doesn't turn it quick enough. He doesn't move the ball on quick enough, does he? For an Ange team, so no. I wouldn't think Lenny would take 6. What I've seen about Awata and how he's played for Ange's team, I'm not too sure of getting in front of him either. So yeah.
Bold. That's a bold statement. We'll get to the midfield. That's a bold statement. But yeah, I put it out there, and it just shows you don't realise, because often these pictures will get a few likes, a few comments. It kind of ran, not quite as much as Colin's bingo card. But it's always good to look at teams of the past and how they would compare. It's all hypothetical, of course. A bit of fun, Lawrence. It wasn't meant to be any deep and meaningful tweet. However, it takes us up to this big game at the weekend, and obviously we hope to have an exclusive interview with one member of that team who I can't name at the moment, but one member of that team who we have been speaking to, posing questions to this week, and hopefully that will be on the Axon blog. It will be a written article. But Craig Bellamy has also been in the news this week about his battle, his financial battle, and the fact that he's now bankrupt. But he spoke about the mental health implications of that, Lawrence. And we know that he has spoken about mental health issues in the past as well. And what I thought was, you've got all these guys who make millions of pounds from the game, right? We get all that, right? They've got all the riches, they've got all the opportunities that money brings with it. But Craig Bellamy was talking about the fact that there was no real advice. There was no financial advice. There was no financial guidance. So as football clubs, we sign these guys often as young players. There's so many young players down in English football who are multi-millionaires before they are 21 years of age, Lawrence, and a lot of them, you know, they're doing that without actually playing first-team football. But no advice is given, so that at the end of their career, financially, they probably aren't good at managing their finances, and they've maybe made a lot of investments that don't turn out, and before you know it, at a very young age, they're bankrupt, and all that money that they've made from the game is long gone. Bellamy spoke about being relieved going into bankruptcy because, you know, it was a concern every day. It was a fear every single day. And I don't think that side of the game is spoken about enough, Lawrence. You just think, oh, you've got all this money. If you squander it, you squander it. Bellamy isn't a drinker. He's not a gambler. He doesn't take drugs. He spoke about that. And I think there's going to be a lot of players in his position, Lawrence.
Listen, probably, I'm not too sure how much financial advice football clubs can give, you know, being a regulated industry. Perhaps put them in touch with reputable advisors. I'm sure John Hughes would relish the chance to do that for some players. But you're saying, you know, he didn't squander it in gambling, drinks, or drugs. You know, those are the diseases that get a hold of people. Yeah. So I don't know if it makes any worse that it wasn't that or any better. But there's some personal responsibility as well. Who you pick on to listen to, isn't there? You can't get away from that. And it's me. I don't know whose advisors were they regulated, but it seems like it's an awful lot of money to have gone. A lot of investments to have gone bad. Must have been pretty high risk if they all go bad. So yeah, you've got to look at his advisors and who are they? I think would be first of all. But tell you what, Bellamy would get in the team.
Where would you play him? Who drops out?
Up front, mate. He's starting. I'd start him in front of Kyogo Ando. If we could play both of them at the same time, Bellamy, mate. Oh, what a player!
Are you basing that on his Celtic performances? Because I loved him at Celtic, right? But
I've only based on his Celtic performances. I probably haven't watched him, you know, enough elsewhere. I know he was good at Newcastle. Didn't watch him up, but on his Celtic performances, mate. Oh, what a player!
No, but I had a Kyogo.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Different level. Wow. Different level.
That's bold. That's a bold statement. You're making bold statements today, Lawrence. What do you think in the comments? Lawrence has an opinion. Do you agree with it? The Urban Culture, I listened to the second part of yesterday's show while driving. Our Japanese envoy was on fire. Liam Carrigan was back in action, as was Lawrence. Saturday can't come quickly enough. And read today a wee bit more information on Celtic's planned tour of Japan as well. And I just think that when you look at the way that Celtic have managed to tap into areas of our fan base that, listen, Lawrence, they already existed, but when you have such a contingent at the club, you can build on them. I think our tour is a great way of doing it, but I think also we can't forget our Irish fan base. We can't forget going over and playing games in Ireland. It doesn't happen often enough, does it?
No, definitely not. But you know, we've got to maximise the opportunities, and they're in the Far East just now. So there's something you could lose money on potentially, or some people can lose money on a tour that you get paid to go to. How to turn it into a loss? Our friends across the city were able to do that, but yeah, you know, we know we've been well run. We've been well run since Fergus came in, and you've got to make the most of this. Mm-hmm. If we go over there, you know, it's about growing and expanding a long-term fan base. Yeah, we need to get games in Ireland again, but I think that's where the bigger opportunity, the biggest growth market is for us at the moment, and they want to go over there and take advantage of it. You've got to do it properly. I suppose it is a busy calendar. You know, you can only play in so many games, and you want it to be a first team if it goes to Ireland, don't you? You don't want it to be the legends. As much as I go and watch it, you kind of think it's not the same thing, is it? So Ireland being a bit closer, I'm sure there'll be opportunities to send a team over there. But yeah, the money on offer in the Far East, in last season it paid for money in major acquisitions to Australia. What will this year's tour pay for?
Well, there is the financial aspect of it. I think also nurturing that fan base, getting over there, seeing your fans, them seeing us in full Technicolor. And like you say, it's got to be the first team. And I just remember often that, we would go over to Ireland and we would play friendly games pre-season. And I know that there was a whole period of time where, due to the qualifiers, we just didn't have that opportunity to do it. But hopefully that is something we're able to fit into the calendar. It's going to be difficult as well with regards to games and players. And, if we're trying to visit Australia and Japan and Ireland and everything else, it's going to be difficult. But I'm sure it's an important date in the diary for the Celtic board, because we can never, ever forget the commitment shown by our Irish fan base every single game, home and away. Pat Maguire, listen, guys, we worry about our game. It's far superior. If we are on it, we win it. Simple as. I think Celtic's game is far superior, Lawrence. I don't think we've always seen it in games against Rangers. I think that often, with regards to the draw earlier on this season, and even when we beat them in the Cup, we weren't at our absolute best. We weren't firing on all cylinders, yet we still came out of the game without getting beat. I think if we see a Celtic turning up that we've seen, the rip-roaring Celtic that we've seen so often, then there is absolutely no doubt that we're going to win the game comfortably. But it doesn't always act like that in these derby games, does it?
Listen, the cup final, although the score was close, that was the only thing about that game. It was close. The amount of chances we missed. So, yeah, I think, with only Celtic fans in the stadium and Clancy, I think he's our biggest worry. I think it's going to be 3-1, maybe 4-1. I think this will be an easy game for us. It's a game, we've got the advantage. We don't need to win this game. The pressure's not on us to win it. Pressure's on the other side of the city. If they don't win, season's finished again. Because this will lay down a marker for the semi-final. It'll bust their lucky streak so far. They've been fairly fortunate in terms of decisions just coming at the right time for them to turn, scores around for them. So I think if we can go, much like Gio was apparently on a run before we beat them, with everything to worry about. I don't know how Michael Beale's been compared to Arsene Wenger. I don't know, maybe Alex Ferguson, perhaps God knows with the Scottish press. But I think it's Saturdays we're going to find out what it's about. Never mind the real Rangers. They're going to have to do their talking on the park. And I think that's where they lack. Their players aren't as good. They can't live with the pace we play at. They don't have the style we have. And I think they're going to find out a painful lesson that Blackburn found out all those years ago. Do your talking on the park.
Yes, Daniel Hamilton.
If you can't back it up in the park,
exactly.
Get a painful lesson.
I know. I just think back to the old WWF days where, Macho Man Randy Savage and all that would come on and give it what they were going to do to somebody in the ring. And it was all just absolute cartoon box office nonsense. And when you hear footballers coming out and giving it all that, I just can't take them seriously. Lawrence, there's no credibility in it. Celtic don't conduct ourselves like that before a game. We just don't do it. There's a lack of respect there. If you don't respect your opponent, then straight away, I think you're on the back foot. I think you've got a captain in Callum McGregor, who is almost like a manager. He's a coach on the pitch. That's what he was called on international duty. He's a coach on the pitch. He's a coach in the dressing room, because Ange doesn't spend too much time in the dressing room, or the locker room as he calls it. You've got Ange Postecoglou. They will know their game plan. It's something that Callum McGregor spoke about. He was frustrated with in the final season under Neil Lennon, where often they went out, they didn't know their game plan. They know their game plan. You've got guys like Callum McGregor, but not just him. I think you've got Joe Hart, who's one of the leaders on the park. Carter Vickers is a leader. Greg Taylor's a leader. Lawrence, I don't know. I think it was Kevin Graham that spoke about his leadership qualities before any of us did. He's a leader on the park. And I've seen a wee bit more from even Jota, a wee bit more of his game. I think Aaron Moy's another one. But these are guys that you can rely on, even if the chips are down. Even if you do lose an early goal, which we did at Ibrox, it was Aaron Ramsey, I think, scored an early goal. Callum McGregor refused to get beat. No, I'm going to grab this game by the scruff of the neck. We've now got that character within the team. Now, you're going to come out and start giving it all the Macho Man Randy Savage nonsense the week before a Glasgow Derby. You've got to have that in you to be able to grab a game by the scruff of the neck. If they think they've got that in them, great. I've not seen it. Here we go. Paddy Lavery's telling you to take a day off. Lawrence.
Eventually.
You're here and you're always here.
Yeah.
You'll get a day off tomorrow. It'll be myself and JP. We've got Chris Burley. Don't know if this has been mentioned, but next time VAR is discussed, the Scotland games had VAR, and it was far easier and smoother. Ref was definitely in control, whole different experience. I do want to talk about the officials for the weekend. We'll do that next. But I have been advised that one of the commenters who came on yesterday simply to abuse one of our contributors is back on, obviously with the same name, probably the same avatar, setting up a new user. If you're a Celtic fan, that isn't really what we're going to be expecting from you. But once I get down the row and I see whatever it is that you're throwing at us today, I'll be able to deal with that. But, you know, that's not really the community that we're building on a Celtic State of Mind. Jonathan Brown, good afternoon from North Wales. Good afternoon to you, Jonathan. And just before the bulletin started, Lawrence, I was reminded that Big Bad John, someone else from Wales, Big Bad John, it's his birthday today. And I make it 48. He's 48 today. Big happy birthday to John Hartson, 48 years young, the big man. He is joining myself on stage at Barra's Art and Design in Glasgow at the end of this month. It's going to be a brilliant weekend, actually, because we've got Alan Thompson on the Friday at Gracie's. We've got John Hartson on the Saturday at Barra's. And then on the Sunday, we might have a game as well. So it's going to be a cracking weekend. Some tickets still available for Big John. Some VIP, extra VIP tickets just released if you want to meet the big fella, get your photograph taken, get a signed gift as well. Then you can do that. And I look forward to speaking to John Hartson about football, about life, about the highs and the lows, Lawrence. I love the big man.
He's great. You know, he's got Celtic right at his heart. Absolutely. He was a wonderful performer for us. Another guy that could do his talking on the park. You know. Listen, I think this all comes down to standards. You know, some clubs have them, some clubs talk about them. You know, 3 players sent off in the reserve game, assaulting a member of the opposition's management, refusing to ban that player from that assistant manager from your dugout. What's that saying to your players? You know, was that kind of an odd? And then the next game you get 3 players sent off. You tell them indiscipline's tolerated. You know, it's for a club that bang on about standards all the time. They show a remarkable lack of them. Mm-hmm. You know, and the financial standards. More shares issued, chairman walking away. How do they run the club? 9 players out of contract. Getting the snows. If that was us, I'm pretty sure it'd be cracked press material.
It would be an absolute blizzard. It would be a blizzard of bad news, Lawrence. There's no doubt about it. But that is something that the good thing is, right? We're not walking around believing what we read, right? That's the good thing. There was a time in the past where, you know, Celtic. And you can think what you want about the previous board. We've spoken about them massively. But when Celtic set up the Celtic View, there was a reason for that in 1965. It was to try and control the narrative to the point where the back pages and the front pages and various other pages within the newspapers were basically propaganda to support one club. The one man that changed all that actually was Jock Stein. But Celtic had to set up their own newspaper. Now, we know what that became. We knew that became Pravda in the 80s and 90s, where you know, members of the board were actually writing their own letters and making up pseudonyms and all that. Oh, the board are doing a great job. We knew what it became. But it's always been there. We know that there has always been a narrative and an agenda, Lawrence. But what I find refreshing now is everybody realises it, they notice it, they don't believe it. It's not like that newspaper drops through your letterbox and you believe what you read. That doesn't happen now.
Listen, it's probably why that circulation's gone through the floor. Because people know it's just a fanzine for one club. Would you really believe anything you read in it? They're so far off the mark. You know, it's much like, I suppose, the BBC will put 3 ex-Rangers players on to tell us how Scottish football's fair and there's nothing to worry about and VAR's brilliant and you know, it evens itself out over a season. You know, it doesn't. You know, the stats say that. You've got nothing to back up any of your statements. It's just crazy stuff. So, yeah, it's good that the fans are more aware, you know, because I can remember Fergus unfortunately, the press had it in against him, and he ended up getting booed unveiling the league flag. I think we've definitely moved on for those days. I don't think the fans as a whole are as easy to influence by the press. But, we'll take it. Fan media is much better than listening to Rangers fans tell you umpteen reasons why Celtic shouldn't get a blatant penalty. It's just insulting intelligence at times.
The other big thing, obviously, was the advent of the fanzine. The Celtic fanzines back in the day, Lawrence, were an incredible way of educating yourself about the club. And I don't mean the history of the club, but what was happening at the club, what was happening at boardroom level. And as a young Celtic fan reading that, thinking to myself, we're in deep, deep trouble. And that's in 87, 88. Not the viewer telling you we're in trouble. And obviously it transpired that we absolutely were. But who was doing the digging? Who was running the stories back then? Who was sending coffins and hearses to Celtic Park? The mainstream media. They wanted that to be the headline. Whereas now it's all very much, there's a crisis here, but let's just ignore it. Let's just ignore it, and let's allow somebody to sit in a press conference and say that they've got, was it unlimited funds? I'd need to check the actual. Was it unlimited funds?
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, why aren't you questioning that? Absolutely.
Unlimited. Are you looking at Messi, or who is it you're going to sign for the top leagues then if your money's unlimited? All right, it's not that unlimited. No,
scared to question it.
Why are you having a share issue partway through a season? It doesn't really add up, does it? If it's unlimited, why can't you get players to sign your contract? What's going on? But listen, I suppose it's a long while since we've had to worry about them, isn't it? We focus on, do what Ange does, focus on Celtic. What's going well for us? We'll keep an eye on what the SFA are doing regarding this licensing issue. Because we know they would do the same as before if they could get away with it. But that's the problem, there's a structural problem there that they refuse to acknowledge. But just now, Ange's got it right, it's the 90 minutes in the park, focus on that first and foremost. I think we do that, it's 3-1, 4-1 in Saturday. Who plays? Because I think we started on, we were going to start naming the team about 40 minutes ago. So, a tough
We've named the defence.
The back five's fine, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Nothing gets there. I think McGregor definitely plays. I don't think O'Reilly's done enough to keep his place. So you've got Iwata, depending if Moy and Hatate are fit. It's two from those three. And I suppose it depends how fit they are. And I think I'd go McGregor, Iwata and Moy.
Okay. Iwata.
Yeah, I did. I thought second half he can really come on to a game. First half, distances for Callum weren't quite right, but they sorted that out. I think he's an absolute class player. And the Japanese league's most valuable player. Look at the impact that other Japanese imports have had. I expect huge things from Iwata. It's going to be an absolute outstanding player for us.
I do think that. I think he's definitely with one eye on European football next season, perhaps. Whether or not I'd play him in the game at the weekend is another matter. I'll tell you who I would play in just a moment. GP 1888, Moy and Taylor should start. If they're fit, they start in my team. No doubt about that. Jungle Lion. Lawrence is worse than Graham Norton. Never off the screen, Lawrence. And your Doug is becoming just as famous as Graham Norton as well. Now, when you disappeared to give him a bone or whatever you do with dogs, I don't have any pets, I'm sorry, or some munchies. I was talking about your dog's name's Marley. Is it after Bob Marley?
Oh, kind of the last dog was Jacob, so this one's Marley. So, yeah. So, I do like Bob Marley as well, but it's probably more to do with the last dog being called Jacob.
Okay. Hatate starts for Jamie Young. Hatate starts. Well, if he's fit, he starts. I mean, my midfield, my three is Callum McGregor. When you print the team sheet out and you're going to write the rest of the players in biro, McGregor's name's already on it. He's the captain. He's the man that would play in every single game when fit. Absolutely no doubt about it. Who plays alongside him? I agree with you on Matt O'Reilly. Not ready to write him off for sure. But he hasn't really performed that well. And we know that when we went into the game against Rangers last time round, Moy had a brilliant game against Hibs at Easter Road, scored a couple of goals That was the game in which Rocco Vata made his debut, Lawrence, and then he dropped out for the game against Rangers at the weekend. And I don't think Ange has made many mistakes, to be honest with you, but I did feel that was a slight error in relation to that. So with regards to the lineup in the midfield, I'm going to go for McGregor, Moy if fit, Hatate if fit. If Hatate doesn't make it though, that's when you think to yourself, right, how do we model that at that stage? I think your options, obviously, like you say, you've brought in a Wata, right?
Yeah.
I think your other options at that point would be bringing in someone like David Turnbull. Now, that could be a bit of a risk. But at the same time, has he failed when he's came on as a sub? Probably not. I think he's always made an impact. The last time he got a start, he wasn't great, and the start before that, he got sent off. So, I don't think I'd have any concerns if he is picked. But he might go for a Wata. Oh, I'm actually now starting to agree with you.
For me, I would start at Wata. Both Moy and Hatate coming back from injury. We'll need legs in the midfield. I would start at Wata, McGregor, and Moy.
I thought Wata was brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I thought he played really well against Ross County. In fact, I think his performance was downplayed a wee bit.
Those three against, I'm not even too sure who they're going to. Ryan Jack, Nicholas Raskin, Cantwell. I don't think they'll live with those three.
No.
I think we'd win the midfield battle easily there with those three in it.
Just a wee shout out from Blaboy. We all love the dog. So Mali has got a CSC dedicated to him on the Axom comments list as well. Right, so there's the question. If Hatate's no fit, who replaces him? So you're in agreement, Moy, McGregor, you would play a Wata?
A Wata, yeah. I mean, I would start that even if, providing Moy's fit, that'd be my starting mid-3,
right.
Three anyway.
Right, okay. Well, if Hatate doesn't make it for me, I'm bringing in Turnbull. I'm bringing in David Turnbull. Moy, McGregor and Turnbull, right? And I just think he won't play the 90. He definitely won't play the 90, but I think that there is a creativity around David Turnbull. I think that you've just got to look at his minutes on the park and look at the amount of assists and goals that he's had this season. He's not played as much game time as he did last time round, but that's down to the form of the others round about him. You've then got plenty of options on the bench. You've got Matt O'Reilly, and you've got a Wata, and you can change the game with a Wata if needs be. Maybe in the last half hour of the game, if you're a couple of goals up, Lawrence, and you want to shore it up a wee bit. David Turnbull's not had the game time, he's maybe tiring. You pull him off, you put on a Wata at that stage, or you can continue to go again and bring on O'Reilly. I'm going to start with Turnbull. That's my midfield. What do you think in the comments section about the selections of both Lawrence and myself? Thankfully, we've had a moderator popping in just to deal with the other lurker coming in. I mean, I expect it from fans of other teams, but fans of Celtic coming in just to noise people up. Come on, man. We're kind of over all that kind of stuff, are we not? I could see the frustrations during the lockdown season, but we're going for a treble here. Can't we all just be friends, Lawrence?
I think it's they either face up to their reality about their own club and look at what's going on, or they come on here and I don't think reality's got a good picture for them.
No. And this is the thing. It's just about being realistic. And I think when you're looking at the situation and the conversation we had last week, Lawrence, and we're not going to go over it again. We spoke about the gap, and we're not just focusing on the 9 points because that's all that seems to be getting focused on. Rangers are winning games, yeah, but what does that say about the quality of the opposition that they're playing? When we go into this game on Saturday, what I want is I want a rerun of the last time we played at Celtic Park when it was a full Celtic Park and there was no Rangers fans there. It was one of the best performances we've seen under Ange Postecoglou. The only disappointment was we only scored 3 goals. I think, Giakoumakis could have scored 3 goals himself that day. And in the second half, we could have just torn them to pieces. And I want us to approach it in the same way. And I think the energy is going to be such that we're just going to go at it from, obviously, the kickoff. Lawrence, we're going to have the game won by half-time. But the difference this time round is we'll have a stronger bench and we can really punish them in the second half.
Yeah, I don't think we'll let up this time. I think, yeah. I think we'll be 1 or 2 up, be half time, and the only thing that's going to keep it close is time wasting, refs giving innocuous fouls, stuff like that. But honestly, I can't see anything on 3 points for us. I just don't think we have it as a team. When you watch them, they look weak. And I think Awata starting with McGregor and Moy definitely wins the midfield. And up front, I'd start all over Kyogo, mate. What a 15 minutes he had there.
Wait a minute. Right.
I think we need a more physical approach because.
So you're starting with Awata, I know.
Yeah, starting with Awata, I know, mate.
Right. Okay. So you're dropping Kyogo. You're dropping the top goal scorer for Aliko. I think I've been really impressed. I've sang his praises on here. He's chapping at the bit. Right, so I get where you're coming from. The physicality of Giakoumakis caused them problems previously. You've got similarities there with O. I think you actually think he's an upgrade on Giakoumakis.
Well, definite upgrade. Which is good because a player trading model's working. We've brought in 2 players. A wee bit unhappy. We sold them before they knew it, and we had their replacements in the door. And we've made a decent bit of money, and we've improved the squad at the same time. It's really what we need to be doing with every transfer, isn't it?
Yeah. Aye.
I think Kyogo, they'll be given carte blanche to do what they want to Kyogo on and off the ball. So I think he'll be getting bounced about a bit if he starts. That's why I'd start all against him.
That was an interesting discussion actually in relation to a game that was played under the tenure of Tony Mowbray that Peter Grant was telling us about, and with regards to that, it was a game where there was 14 or 16 fouls on Robbie Keane.
Yeah, that was old guy. I can't even remember.
Magic Bugera.
Carte blanche to kick him all over the park. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some dodgy offside decisions as well, and I think that's what we'll face.
There was also three penalty shouts that weren't given. That apparently it was admitted after the event, off the record, that they should have been given. Now, with regards to that, I have come into possession of a huge Celtic collection of archive footage, Lawrence. So we're working our way around. There's obviously copyright issues with footage, right? So even if you put goals out on social media, eventually, if you get enough complaints from the copyright holders, your social media account will be blacked out and removed and all this kind of stuff. So we're not going to do it that way. But what I like is all the other stuff that you don't see that often, Lawrence. I like stuff like post-match interviews. I love stuff like Jim White doorstep and Jackie Jackanoski with a birthday cake, and all this kind of obscure stuff that doesn't get shown that often, or Terry Butcher trying to kick the door off at Singes when Billy McNeil's getting interviewed after the 1-0 game when Tommy Coyne scores. All that kind of stuff are brilliant bits of play that isn't seen that often. And you know what? I think we've got something like, let me just try and work this out, something like 600 hours worth of footage that has been painstakingly recorded. And we've got the collection that's here. I'll give the gentleman a big shout out, but I don't know if he wants his name to be mentioned, but you know who you are. And obviously, I came and picked it up in about 3 or 4 different van loads to get all the gear. But within that, we will be sharing that on our socials eventually. Within that was a massive stack of the old Celtic football annuals. So me being a proper anorak, I'm going through them, right? And there's a goal, early 90s, there's a goal scored by Tommy Coyne against St Johnstone, and it's a penalty kick. And the caption underneath explains that this was Celtic's first penalty in 54 domestic fixtures, Lawrence. So I'm going back to what we were talking about before, where these issues have always been there. 54 games without a penalty. Now, I know Celtic weren't as attacking and as great as they are now back in the early 90s, but 54 games without a penalty. Seriously, that was before VAR, incidentally.
I'm not surprised by it at all. I don't know if Alan Morrison will ever look up, the stats decade upon decade and see what the likelihood of sending offs and bookings and penalties are. But I think we could probably guess they'll favour one team. you know. But listen, it is what it is. Ange has gone as, you know, it's not a phrase I like. You know, people say, you know, Jockstein said, you know, you've got to be good enough to beat the referee. He also took the referee to task. You know, that was kind of a one-off comment. Ange has got his winning in spite of referees in many occasions this season. Can maybe say the opposite is true. They won on many occasions because of referees. So that's why, you know, I think the gap's, you know, it's bigger than 9 points. The financial gap is absolutely massive.
It's a stability. It's a stability, Lawrence. Yeah.
You know, how many share issues would you need?
It's the share issue to pay off the chairman. You know, you start, if I'm a journalist, I want to find that out, right? So he's maybe saying, well, listen, it's time for me to go, but I want some kind of payback here. My shares are worth nothing. They're getting called confetti by the financial advisors and the experts, because that's exactly what they were. What they're worth. 0.25. They're worth 25 pence. Is that what they're worth? Incredible.
It's
listen,
paper.
It is.
Know, that's all it is. It's,
yep.
And Scottish football, you know, apparently the worst thing that ever happened was Rangers going into liquidation. Well, why aren't you putting in rules and regulations to stop that happening in the future? You seem to be quite happy to, shall we say, look the other way. Because you can see it happening again.
You can, and this is the issue. So you've got the club themselves, right? You've got the authorities who, like you quite rightly said, didn't step in. You know, they were complicit in the issues that had accumulated over the years. And then at the time, not so much now in terms of the influence, but at the time, a very, very influential Scottish media who, you know, stayed tight-lipped about the situation and pretended that billionaire owners were coming in and all this kind of nonsense, right? And then you can see history repeating itself, Lawrence. Now, we'll sit here on Axom and let it repeat itself, but, you know, if people bring it up, you know, everybody knows what the situation is. There's nothing groundbreaking in what we're saying here, Lawrence, but I do want to talk about the officials at the weekend, not before I bring up some of these. Ridiculizer, O'Reilly seems to have checked out, maybe head turned frustrated at appearance time. Right, I'm going to shape it a slightly different way, Ridiculizer, right? Prior to last season, Matt O'Reilly hadn't played that much football. There was an issue with his back. He had a back issue in his early days at Fulham. And it was to do with growth spurts, and he had real issues to the point where they weren't sure if he was going to make it in the professional game. And he hadn't played that much football. But the season that we signed him last season, he ended up playing 50 games, both with MK Dons and Celtic. And then this season, I'll double check this, I think he's played 40 games this season, right? So he's played in very, very quick succession. He's played 42 games. He's played 92 games, right, in under 2 seasons, which you might say by Callum McGregor's standards isn't much. But when you consider the physical issues that he had as a young player, Lawrence, that's a hell of a lot of games. I think more, and I hope more, it's to do with maybe fatigue.
Listen,
with Matt O'Reilly. Yeah.
He's a young player. We've set unbelievably high standards. You know, I saw people complain about the Ross County game. We're away at Ross County, a tight park, the business end of the season. They're scraping for their very survival. Mm-hmm. And we get as comfortable a 2-0 win as I can remember. 71% possession, 30 shots on goal. The keeper was inspired form.
Yeah.
Kyogo, you know, he missed the sitter. If you go on and think, well, yeah, his form's dropped a little, but he's played a lot of games. And you've got to look who we're comparing him to now. It's who comes in. A lot came in and I thought was outstanding. Moy, we signed, we weren't sure, you know, is he going to be a squad player? He's more than a squad player, isn't he? And obviously you've got Cal Mack to live up to. So I think it's the standards that we're setting as a club that's getting pushed on. And, you know, he might be one of those players that can't live with the standards because Ange wants to, you know, raise them season on season. And maybe Ange will have a look and say, you know what, I can bring in better. Because he's talked about that. It's now about improving the team, isn't it? We had to get a squad together. He's done that. He's got the finest squad in the country, but it's quite some distance now. Mm. And it is about, right, let's have a look at a player training model. Who's maybe not able to take it to the next step? Who could we get some money for it and move and reinvest in the team? Because we've got an eye in Europe now. And listen, that's what Ange will be thinking about. He will really want to make his mark. if he can tie up a treble this season, it's something ticked off from, isn't it? You know, fourth manager to do it. And then Europe, that's the big question for him.
There's also the thing, Lawrence, you're going to get a group of people within a core group of people in that team who are consistent. Week in, week out, they're giving you that 7, that 8, your Callum McGregors of this world, right? You're also going to get players who just have patches of the season where they're not great. It's just the way it is, right? And by the way, I think that you've seen it to a degree with Abada this season as well. And you know, I'm in no hurry to get rid of Abada or O'Reilly, because I think when you see them in the good patches of, let's say, 20 games, a dozen games, whatever it might be, they're sensational players who can change a game. They can win you the game. They've not become bad players. I think O'Reilly is suffering a bit of fatigue. I mean, and the reason we were talking about who to replace Hatate with, and we weren't even talking about O'Reilly, is because he's not been at his best. Now, Ange might say the best way to manage that is to let him play through it, rise to the occasion. I thought he was brilliant in the Champions League this season, playing in a slightly different position. Play through it, go out there and give us a performance against Rangers, and then he clicks back into that 8 games between now and the end of the season, where he's on a good bit of form. I'm not panicking about O'Reilly. No way, shape or form.
I'm not panicking about any players. You know, if Abada wants to go, you know, there seems to be chat in the press. If you believe it, who knows? If he does, we'll make good money on him, and fully trust Tosh and team to bring in an even better player. You know, one that fits the Ange model. O'Reilly, he's a young player, as you've touched on. He's played a lot of games, setting high standards as a club. You know, he's going to have a bad game now and again. If Ange doesn't think he's going to be able to take it to the next level, we'll sell him, we'll make money, we'll reinvest. You know, we've got a model that's proven to work. You know, it's why we're the dominant team in Scottish football. We have proven business model that supports getting the best team in the park.
See, the thing for me with regards to the point, though, is that just because a player goes off form doesn't make it say he's going to leave within 3 months. You know, I think Matt O'Reilly, in terms of his development as a football player, stays with Celtic beyond this summer. Lila Abada might not, but I don't think O'Reilly's at the same stage of his progression, his Celtic cycle, as Abada. I think that he's got another campaign in him. I think, as I say, 92 games for most players, by the way, over a 2-season period is a hell of a lot of games. He's also played 3
seasons, really, for most players, isn't it? 92.
And he's played some
season, they're doing well.
Yeah, he's playing international football, and amongst that as well, he's obviously part of the under-21 squad with Denmark. So no concerns whatsoever. Abada, it's maybe slightly different. He'll complete his second season. He's maybe thinking, well, I played Champions League football, time to go. If that's the case, yeah, we've got the model in place. Lawrence, he will leave. We'll make a profit. That'll be reinvested. And I think we'll all be quite, not happy with it, but we're satisfied that that's the way that we do business. I'm really keen to get a few more comments up before Lawrence and I talk about the officials, and then we can wrap it up for this afternoon. Thanks, everybody, for keeping it all good on the comment section. Pat Dolan, any chance Abada, a.k.a. the Ghost, will make a cameo appearance? Like I said before, Pat, nothing surprises me about Ange. Sometimes he goes quiet on some of the players, and then all of a sudden they pop up. Remember the game last season where it was, who were we playing at home? And McGregor and Kyogo popped up. They'd both been out for some time. Kyogo with his shoulder injury. It'll come back to me. But I remember being there and the team getting called out, and it was something of a surprise when both players started the game. Celtic follower, Haksabanovic, he's not been mentioned yet. In terms of the forward line then, I think Jota, for me, I know you're a wee bit different because you're matching O up against the physicality of the Rangers defence. I'm going to go O. No, I'm not. I'm going to go Kyogo, Jota and Maeda. That's my top 3. Celtic follower, Haksabanovic, I just think he's going to be dynamite off the bench. He's a great option off the bench. And hopefully we do have some other options on there as well who can change a game like Matt O'Reilly if he doesn't make the starting 11. And the final comment of today is from Stephen Murray. Not the view was great. I absolutely loved it. Such a part of my Celtic supporting youth. I used to read it from cover to cover. It was phenomenal, and I've been revisiting them actually for a while over the last year or so, and the patter is superb. Listen, we've had a couple of appeals recently. I think it's important just to refresh everybody's memories and minds on this. I've been following it very, very carefully on the Facebook pages that are set up for these individuals, and you can imagine just how worried their families are. First up is Reece Roger, 28 years of age, last seen over 2 weeks ago now by friends. He was out on a camping fishing trip, and no one has seen or heard from him since. Please call if you've got any information. 101, quoting that reference number 1348 of the 19th of March. You just never know, Lawrence, in today's age of cameras being everywhere, if someone has had a sight of him on a dash cam or something like that, and you might tune into Axom, who knows, you could be passing through, you could be from the area, the Kinloch Rannoch area, and you could maybe help with this investigation. Search teams organised by friends and family have been going up on a daily basis, Lawrence, to comb the area to try and find Reece, who is from the Rosyth area. He's been living in the villages, the West Five villages. And I know this doesn't make any difference. He's a Celtic fan, is Reece as well. And obviously his family are extremely concerned about him. So if you can help, please do so. You just never know who might be watching this, Lawrence. And hopefully we can return Reece back home ASAP. It's a sad one. It's a real sad one. Now, I mentioned earlier on, Big John Hartson, it's his birthday today, 48 years of age. He'll be joining us on stage. We've got a few events coming up with Alan Thompson, Jackie McNamara and John Hartson. Nice intimate gigs, Lawrence, at very, very good venues in Glasgow. All three of them made up part of the team that got us to Seville 20 years ago. We'll be talking about that and everything else. Wee Jackie, Tomo, and Big Bad John. If you want to join us, some tickets are available for all three gigs underneath this video. Finally, before we go, officials, Lawrence, is it an issue for you? Is it a concern? We know who's going to be the man with the whistle. We know who's going to be assisted by in terms of the VR room and everywhere else. Any concerns?
So we've never won a Celtic Rangers or Celtic the Rangers game when Mr. Clancy's been in the middle. I've seen him give penalties with his back thumb to the incident where players...
That was Colm. That was Willie Colm.
So was that Colm that gave it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've never won a game with him, but he'll have an influence.
We've never won a game? Oh, right, okay. I remember Clancy being on the sidelines when Bruni was winding up Morelos. I was thinking he was ref in that game. He wasn't. He was the fourth official. Yeah. Yeah,
but Clancy's... to be honest, I don't think it matters really who they give us out of the cohort of refs they've got. You know, we're always going to be concerned because the stats bear it out, mate. You know, it's not just saying, oh, that ref gives them a lot of penalties or that ref doesn't. The stats bear it out. But do I think they'll do enough to influence the outcome of the game? I doubt it, mate. Not the way Ange has got us playing. So, yeah, I'm concerned that we're up against referees that are less than transparent, shall we say. You know, it's something they should bring in, I think, for the benefit of football. For all fans, you know, imagine a referee coming on after the game, was on live and on radio or on TV, having to explain why he gave decisions. You know, and VAR could explain it there and then. Yeah, because, you know what, he definitely knows there and then why he's done it. It's not like he has to, you know, think back and make stuff up why he done decisions. Not that referees would do that to Celtic. Yeah, make reasons up. But I'm concerned that, you know, they're not going to be that good. But I think Ange's got enough in his team that it won't matter.
Give us a prediction, Lawrence.
So I'm going to go 3-1.
3-1 Celtic. And what about the second half?
I think I'll end up 4-1, mate.
Okay, Doc. Listen, I'm not bringing this up to have a dig at you. Red Line 670, thanks for getting involved. But I do think we need to explain why we're raising funds for Celtic's birthplace. I don't mind giving to charity, says Red Line, for a good cause. But why are Axom trying to raise money for Celtic's birthplace? Yet the Vatican has billions of pounds worth of art and gold. Listen, we have been raising money for St Mary's for just about a year and a half now, Lawrence. We've raised over 30 grand. I say we, I'm talking we as a collective fan base, not Axom. Axom runs fundraisers, but it's the Celtic fans that are contributing to them. And I'll tell you what, Lawrence knows the situation at St Mary's last Christmas. so 2 Christmases ago. Would they have come through that? Who knows? They were basically desperate for an injection of cash at that point, Lawrence. They were 14 grand in debt. And there are issues. People might think, oh, well, why don't they get bailed out by the Catholic Church, for example, Lawrence? You know, listen, it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. You know, they would still be in debt to someone. Therefore, Celtic fans came together, got them out of that financial pickle, and made things a bit easier for them. We continue to raise funds. And people like Kev Tate from the penalty spot in Sword Street donating prizes that we're raffling off very, very soon is a great ambassador of our charity endeavours, Lawrence, and everybody that's obviously chipped in, be it £1 or £1,000, has really, really assisted. So that's the reason, my man. It's not as easy as that. They can't. There isn't a bank of Vatican that they can just get money from and wash away debts, etc. Why are debts even a thing? Well, repairs to buildings and all that kind of stuff, Lawrence. You know, roofs and
the mother parish, St Mary's, the founding place of Celtic. It keeps a lot to keep it going. But I think Thomas, Canon White, he does a great job down there. You know, it's not a rich parish; it's in a poor area that people need help. You know, we're going through a cost of living crisis, and he's got a point. You know, the Vatican could help. They could, but so could you. You know, it's anyone can help. That's a great thing. If you want to help, you can help.
That's right. And the big thing that Karen White was explaining to us, Lawrence, is some of the community work that they do. And a lot of it goes under the radar with regards to refugees, people who have fled violence from other countries, but also people who have fled domestic violence within Glasgow. And they were basically housing them and feeding them and giving them warmth and shelter. And that all comes at a cost. And you know, the way that Celtic fans have come together constantly to support this cause. And by the way, we're not the only people doing it. Lawrence, you're involved in a fundraiser with Kev at the penalty spot very, very soon, where you'll be raising funds for St Mary's as well.
Malone's a couple of weeks' time. Joe Miller, Natasha will be interviewing Joe, and Liam McGrandles on after it. So it'll be 7 till 3 in the morning.
Past my bedtime, that one.
Friday night, and we've got a game the next day. So, listen, anything we can raise, I'm sure Karen White will gladly receive it, and it'll go towards the parish. I think the big thing the parish could probably do with is, you know, a parish hall. It'd be great to create that again, but I think that's it's a lot of money for that. But you know, that's where Celtic were founded, in the parish hall that's no longer there in East Rose Street. I think East Rose Street, if I can recall from Brendan Sweeney's great books, it has been renamed as well. But anyone out there, you know, that hasn't read Brendan's books, grab them. You know,
they're unbelievable.
Time,
they're unbelievable. They're incredible.
The level of research.
No, they're incredible if you're into reading up on history. But I didn't bring that up to have a dig at the poster. It was just to clarify that, because some people, you know, it's easy to say, well, why doesn't the Catholic Church sort them out? 100%. Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
It's a totally valid question. You know, they could do more. Doesn't stop us from doing something.
They were in a situation, and they needed assistance, and the Celtic fans, you know, it was a call to action through Axom. Celtic fans stood up and made sure it happened, and it continues to happen. And what we're going to do, we released at Christmas time there, something a wee bit different. We released a single which continually gets downloaded and viewed, The Glory and the Dream, which was written by JJ Gilmore and Gary John Kane of the Silencers and the Proclaimers, respectively. Gary John also gave me that, which is a Proclaimers tea towel.
Cracking, isn't it?
It's a tea towel, we've got it framed on the wall there.
A great song. I remember
Sunshine on Leith.
It's on a Hampden, mate.
Oh, I remember that, Can't remember the occasion, but it was a resounding success, I'm sure. But you know, just coming together, the Wakes plus Carly Connor sang the tune. It's out there on video. We're going to do a physical copy of that eventually. That, you know, every single time it's sold on vinyl or CD, every single penny of the profit will go to St Mary's. And you know, a T-shirt with a logo on it and a mug, maybe, things like that, Lawrence, that will be available at the chapel. They'll be available on our shop. Every penny goes to St Mary's. And you know what? a fiver here, a tenner there, it all adds up over a 12-month period. So thanks everybody for continuing to support us in our charity endeavours. We will of course do the 4th charity weekender at the end of this year. We've ran over a wee bit, but Lawrence and I love a natter, and we had to get the officials in there. Somebody says, why are you talking about officials? Where else in European football does that even come into the equation? I think that speaks for itself, Lawrence.
It's how do you force change? It's certainly not by not talking about it. You know, there needs to be something. The club need to be doing something to force change on this. They've got the data. We've talked about it before. Craig Levine going to take a team off the park. Chris Robinson going to do it. You know, managers talk out and say, and it's always club that they are getting absolutely ridiculous decisions. Scotland doesn't want to acknowledge the problem. I don't know why. You know, you'll remember when they lost the hate crimes data. You know, wonder why they lost that, because and is it even possible? I think Police Scotland had 52 different IT systems, but they lost all that information that would have shown Catholics are disproportionately affected by hate crimes. Yeah, I think it's part of that wider conversation that they don't want to have. But listen, it is what it is. We look forward to the weekend where Celtic will, I think, run out resounding winners.
I hope so. And we will obviously be here tomorrow at 12:30. So please come back and get the chat going with myself and JP. And we'll be covering the game, as always, half an hour before the kickoff. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Give us a thumbs up on the video and subscribe if you want to comment. Listen, we don't all agree, but as long as we keep it nice and balanced and respectful, we can disagree respectfully. Lawrence, that's what it's all about, a wee bit of debate. All that's left for me to say once again, Lawrence, you're due a testimonial. Thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks.